Welcome to the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce. The Falmouth Chamber is dedicated to working on behalf of our members to make Falmouth a better place to live, work, and conduct business. We are committed to developing the economic, cultural, educational, and civic interests of our community and welcome the support from all organizations to achieve our combined goals. Whether you call Falmouth home, are a summer resident, or a visitor, we hope you take advantage of all that the Chamber has to offer.
Holiday Inn Falmouth opened year-round for your business and travel needs. We provide a full restaurant and accommodations for banquets, holiday parties, weddings, corporate events, seminars, and more. Featuring KC Bar and Grill, where guests or Falmouth residents can enjoy our selection of local craft beers, cocktails, and a variety of pub food from our menu. Holiday Inn Falmouth, your home away from home.
I'll call our meeting to order and welcome you all to the Monday, May 8th, 2017 Town of Falmouth Board of Selectmen meeting. I invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have 3 proclamations this evening. First is an Eagle Scout proclamation. Mr. Patterson, please.
Whereas Thaddeus Lincoln of Boy Scout Troop 42 has successfully completed qualifications for the rank of Eagle Scout, a rigorous and demanding process that teaches patience, perseverance, and teamwork, and requires strong goal setting. And Thaddeus Lincoln met these challenges with aplomb and shall be recognized as an outstanding representative of his family, his troop, and Falmouth. Whereas the Boy Scouts of America, long acknowledged for building fine citizens, calls for a special court of honor to award its highest symbol of achievement to those who complete this rank. And whereas Thaddeus Lincoln is now an Eagle Scout with all its rank and privilege, now therefore we, Doug Jones, Susan Moran, Samuel H. Patterson, Megan English Braga, and Douglas C. Brown, as Selectmen of the Town of Falmouth, do hereby declare and proclaim this Saturday, May 13th, 2017, as Thaddeus Lincoln Day throughout Falmouth. Congratulations.
Thaddeus, if you would just take a moment to tell us a little bit about what your Eagle Scout project is. Congratulations. And come to the podium.
Congratulations. Some proud parents.
Okay. For my Eagle project, I wanted to do a drug abuse prevention event. I did this because it kind of like hits home with me because my biological father, not my stepdad, is addicted to heroin, and he's kind of been in and out of my whole life, and he's done some bad things, and he hasn't really been a father figure in my life. So I want to prevent kids from having to feel that way and generations after that. So I worked with Gosnold and Project Purple to have a drug abuse prevention event where I spoke and Mr. Vieira spoke, and we had like 60 people sign the Project Purple Pledge, which is like basically a pledge saying that they will not abuse drugs, they will not abuse alcohol, and they will be safe.
Great.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Very much.
I think that's a side of the opioid problem that people forget about, is the impact of families and to young men like yourself. So nice going for persevering through all of that and rising to Eagle. It's great.
Congratulations.
I look forward to attending your Court of Honor and presenting this on behalf of the rest of my selectmen.
Your badges are so impressive, too, all the way up the front, all the way down the back.
You're going to need a longer staff.
Really accomplished young man.
That looks like more than the minimum 21. How many do you have there?
I have 96 or 98 on the sash, but I have 106 in total.
You were right.
I was going to say, so you must have both palms then, right? Silver
I
and...
have a bronze palm.
You have a bronze palm. Congratulations.
That's wonderful.
That's over and above Eagle, for those of you that haven't been involved in scouting. Thanks for
Great,
coming.
thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you for your work.
Next item, we have a proclamation for the Police Week. Ms. Moran?
Yes. Whereas the Congress and the President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officer Memorial Day and the week in which it falls, Police Week. And whereas the members of the law enforcement agency of the town of Falmouth play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of the town of Falmouth. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police department, and that members of our police department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. And whereas the police department of the town of Falmouth has grown to be a modern and scientific law enforcement agency which unceasingly provides a vital public service. Therefore, we, the Board of Selectmen, call upon all citizens of the town of Falmouth and upon all patriotic, civil, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 14 to 20th, 2017 as Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies in which all of our people may join in commemorating police officers past and present who by their faithful and loyal devotion, lost my place here, to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to our communities, and in doing so have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. Further, we call all citizens of the town of Falmouth to observe Wednesday, May 17, 2017 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, in honor of those peace officers who, by their courageous deeds, have lost their lives or have become disabled in the performance of duty, especially our own officer, Samuel F. Pierce, who lost his life in the line of duty on August 16, 1933. I further call upon all citizens of the town of Falmouth to observe a moment of silence on Wednesday, May 17, 2017, in their honor, in witness whereof we, Doug Jones, Susan L. Moran, Samuel H. Patterson, Megan English Braga, and Douglas C. Brown, have hereunto set our hand and caused the great seal of the town of Falmouth to be affixed on this 8th day of May 2017.
Is our motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it. And the next proclamation, whereas Jennifer Stone Gaines began working at the Woods Hole Historical Museum as curator in 1981. And whereas over the past 35 years, Jennifer Stone Gaines has conceived of and managed numerous activities to promote Woods Hole, including village walks and science walks. And whereas Jennifer Stone Gaines has brought numerous speakers to Woods Hole through the conversation series that enlighten people to the historic treasures of Woods Hole Village. And whereas Jennifer Stone Gaines, with her love of sailing, has conceived numerous ways to highlight the maritime heritage of the area. And whereas Jennifer Stone Gaines has been instrumental in preserving and protecting the history of Woods Hole through stewardship of the Woods Hole Historical Museum's archives. And whereas Jennifer Stone Gaines has educated the community about the history of Woods Hole by conceiving and bringing to the Woods Hole Historical Museum's 35 years worth of intriguing exhibits for display at the museum. And whereas Jennifer Stone Gaines has brought the biennial Woods Hole Model Boat Show to Woods Hole, and whereas Jennifer Stone Gaines, in her role as longtime director of the Woods Hole Historical Museum, has made substantial contributions to preserving the history of Woods Hole through her writings and spritzel and activities with the museum. And therefore be it resolved, we, Doug Jones, Susan L. Moran, Samuel H. Patterson, Megan English Braga, and Douglas C. Brown, Selectmen of the Town of Falmouth, issue this proclamation to honor Jennifer Stone Gaines for her long service as curator of the Woods Hole Historical Museum and for her invaluable assistance in preserving the history of Woods Hole. And there'll be an event for her celebrating on May 20th, which I'll be happy to present the certificate to her at that time.
Great, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none, the ayes have it. Next item on our agenda are announcements. And I want to pass on two sad tidings. One is Jack Crowley, who was a longtime resident of Falmouth. He was an ex-Marine police officer and a member of the Coast Guard Auxiliary, but he was also probably most commonly known as the distributor of American flags to municipalities and to places all over the New England. In particular, Falmouth was the recipient just about 4 months ago, and Mr. Crowley has passed away fairly recently. And I'd like to take a moment to think about his family and our best wishes for him, but also the great gratitude that we owe Mr. Crowley. Thank you. In addition, last evening, I'm sad to report that Red Wright, a longtime Woods Hole resident, passed away. His wife, Mary Wright, was a member of the local school board and also the State Board of Education, and the two of them together were longtime fighters for equality, and they worked on the ERA and for Title IX, and the two of them will be missed greatly. Every new moment of silence to send our best wishes to their family too. Any other announcements from the board? Okay. We have time for public comment. If there's anyone who'd like to comment on something that's not on our agenda, please limit your comment to 2 minutes or less, and please make sure to refrain from making any reference to any individuals in your comments. Mr. Finneran?
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6, candidate for a seat on the Board of Selectmen. Last week I wasn't able to make it to the meeting. I was at Longwood all day. There's an illness in my family. Prayers accepted and greatly appreciated. But I was able to watch the latter half of the meeting on TV, and I noticed that Selectmen actually broke the charter in appointing a committee. The charter strictly prescribes any committee in town consisting of an even number of members, even town meeting. That's subsection C 7-3. I actually texted Ms. Braga because I had her number, but to her credit, she doesn't monitor her text messages while she's working. But I would suggest that at this point, the way to rectify it would be to appoint a 7th member rather than to take somebody off that you've already appointed. But as I say, it is against the charter to have even-numbered committees in town. Okay. Thanks a lot.
I will again go against our stipulation typically on public comment. The 6th person was appointed as an alternate member, not a full member, so the membership actually is only 5 members in keeping with the charter of an odd number, and the 6th other person will be an alternate, not serving as a full member. Okay. Mr. Zweig?
Wait, did we have another public comment?
Yep.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. I thought we were switching to...
No, not yet.
Anyway, good evening. I'm Ron Zweig. I'm from Precinct 1, and I'm your representative, as you know, on the Cape Light Compact, at least to date. And I just want to bring the attention to Cape Light Compact's energy efficiency program, and that folks can get audits done of their homes and get a lot of benefits from looking at the energy costs, particularly electricity, within the home for residents, business, and even renters. And so the Cape Light Compact can be contacted at 1-800-797-6699 to have someone come to your home and check it out and help out with energy efficiency needs. For low-income households, there's also the Housing Assistance Corporation that the Cape Light Compact also supports with funds, and they can be reached at 508-771-5400. So I think that this is something that we need to keep, these are opportunities, these costs come off of your electric bill as it is. But I also wanted to say that there are two other aspects that I usually don't talk about with the Cape Light Compact. One is that there is they negotiate for electricity for all the Cape and Vineyard towns, and have gotten and are now providing all green energy for our residents. So if you're interested, if you're on another service, you can come back to Cape Light Compact or come to Cape Light Compact at no cost. In addition to that...
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to have to we have a 2-minute policy.
Oh, okay.
We've gone past that.
I passed it? Oh,
Yep.
Sorry. Okay. Well, anyway, thank you.
Can I redirect on that?
Okay.
I don't mean to disagree, but quoting directly from the charter, it says, "All such bodies shall always consist of an odd number of members." And we have numerous bodies that do have 5 voting members and 2 alternate members, but they are all odd numbers, and I think you might want to check with town council
Okay,
as to
thank you.
the veracity.
Good evening, my name is Paul Dreyer, Precinct 2. I'd like to draw your attention to an issue on Lakeview Avenue where I live. As you know, the main feature of Lakeview Avenue is the school, Lawrence School. And 2 years ago, the town went in and replaced drainage on that street, put a new sidewalk and curb on the south side. Unfortunately, the power poles are in the middle of the sidewalk, so the kids have to walk into the street to get by. 2 years now, they've been working whenever they have time to put a pole in. So now we have 40 poles on that street. And for some reason, they haven't been able to finish it. I've spoken to Mr. McConaughey and several times. He's called them, and he was promised that once they finish the tie-in to the landfill, Lakeview would be addressed next. It's over a month now, and I'm just curious whether the board could put some pressure on the power company to complete that work that was started over 2 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I had to come to you guys today. I have only one complaint. We need cruising in Seacoast. Whether they like it or not, Seacoast needs to be cruised. It can't be ignored. We have break-ins, we had a fatality over there, and now we're getting told, oh, they can't cruise over there. Yes, they can cruise. Our taxes are paying for them to cruise our area. We want to cruise. I'm tired of having to deal with fatalities, deal with break-ins, deal with all the stuff that I deal with. I mean, I can't do the job that the police officers can do. That's what they get paid to do. That's what our tax money is going to. I'm paying for them to have a job. I want the job done, and I want them to cruise Seacoast. Whether Seacoast likes it or whether the police department likes it or not. We're paying for them to cruise it. Why aren't they cruising it? Why aren't they doing their job? I mean, everyone looks at me and says, I can't believe, I have not seen a cruiser over in Seacoast for days. And I begged and I pleaded and I said, you gotta send me somebody. I can't do this job alone. I've been here 26 years. The police department now is failing us because we have issues with safety. I can't be calming people down when someone tries to break in a house and the boys of blue don't feel like coming out. Seacoast needs to be cruised. I'm not asking, I'm telling you. Either that or give me an abatement on my taxes for paying for cruising that's not happening over there. I'm angry. I've been here 26 years. I had better service in other places than here, and I want the service back. And the people that live here, live in Seacoast with me, that are full-time residents, want it. That's what we're asking for. We're not telling you, we're saying to you, you need to do something with your chief to tell your chief he needs to cruise it. There's no reason it shouldn't be cruised. I have 20 roads. I'm not a little development, I'm a huge development, and I can't do it alone. And I need them to cruise, or I need abatement, or hire somebody to cruise Seacoast. And don't give me somebody from the association, because the association is not part of the year-rounders. We're year-rounders. I've been here 26 years. I've been around. It's not like I'm hiding under things. I've been talking to people about it. I want something done. And I don't want people saying, oh, you can't. John tells me, oh, I can't do it. Yes, you can do it. What's my dollars, what's my tax dollars going for except to cruise Seacoast? Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Next item on our agenda are some licenses to approve application for a special one-day wine and malt liquor license for Susan Guerin at the Bakes for Breast Cancer fundraiser, Northbound Cheese Shop.
I move approval.
Second?
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it. And then under administrative orders, we have some requests from Eversource. The first is a petition to install 2 new poles and to lay and maintain underground cables, conduits, wires, and necessary equipment on Little Harbor Road for new construction at 30 Little Harbor Road. You'll notice our recommendation from our engineer is to reject the request. And with the request that it be resubmitted next month with a more detailed plan.
I move that we take the advice of engineering and reject the request.
Second.
Motion and a second to reject the request. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it. Mr. Sousa, if you would make sure that gets transmitted to Eversource.
I will indeed.
And I wouldn't mind at the same time, we're in communication with them. If they've been making assurances that work would be done on Lakeview Road, I agree, it's been quite a while since those poles were ready to be moved, and if we can, maybe with a little quid pro quo, if they want something done, we're asking them to follow through on their promise.
We'll pass that along, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Not to mention the public safety aspect of our students.
Right. Next item is approve Eversource petition to install 1 new 4-inch conduit and 1 handhold on Old Barnstable Road for new service to 9 Eagle Drive, East Falmouth.
I move approval.
Second?
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it. And the next is to approve Eversource petition to install 1 new 4-inch conduit and 1 handhole on Mill Road for new service to 199 Surf Drive.
I move approval.
Second?
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Next is to approve a letter of support for application to the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant Program, FY17, the Executive Office, Energy and Environmental Affairs.
Well, I move approval. This is an important step for us as a town.
Second?
Any further discussion on this letter?
Nope.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it. So we'll take care of that. Next item is a discussion and consideration of Falmouth joining the Cape Light Compact Joint Powers Entity. And we'll have a presentation. I will expect that we will be actually putting a vote on this at a later meeting as opposed to tonight. But we have representatives from Cape Light Compact to start this discussion.
Welcome back.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. My name is Maggie Downey, and I'm the administrator of the Cape Light Compact. It's great to be here. I also want to acknowledge and thank Ron Zweig. He attends all of our meetings and represents you very well, actually. So thank you, Ron. I just have a quick couple of slides for you, just an overview, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Ron, if you want to start. You'll have to forgive me, I have a cold, so I can't hear myself talk, so if I'm not speaking up, just let me know. So what the Cape Light Compact is doing is we are reorganizing under the Modernization, Municipal Finance and Government Act that was enacted by the Massachusetts legislature in November of 2016. And this legislation was submitted by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, and it is recommended that all cities and towns that are working through intergovernmental agreements, which is what how the Cape Light Compact 21 towns work together, reconstitute or reorganize under and as a JPA going forward, and if they advised us to also reorganize under the statute. Joint powers entities are, just like an intergovernmental entity, can receive grants, can expend funds, can hire employees, and can execute contracts. It also, and most particularly, addresses some of the vagaries in the existing statute relative to liability protection for the member towns. It's actually the law under the JPE, it expressly protects and indemnifies the towns from any actions or liabilities of the Cape Light Compact. Under the existing agreement, it wasn't very clear. It also introduces new financial controls. I'll talk about them more in a minute, but it requires a financial audit. We have been preparing an audit, but this is a requirement now, and also has reporting requirements to the member towns. Even though we do this, this is now mandated by law for JPE, and also introduces, which I think is a great thing, a new reporting to the Massachusetts Department of Revenue on an annual basis. So in preparation for the meeting, if you want to go to the next slide, I took the opportunity just to compare and contrast the differences between how we're organized now as an IGA, which is on the left, and then as a joint power agreement. So right now, we still have members in counties. Our representatives are a governing board. You're appointed by the selectmen or a town council. Instead of representatives, they're called directors. The goals of the compact identified within the DPU-approved aggregation plan and any of the other DPU required statutes. So that remains the same. It doesn't change. The financial is where the key elements of the IGA versus JPE incur. So right now, the treasury functions are performed by one of the board members. The treasurer is the representative from the town of Chatham. The Barnstable County does the fiscal agent services, meaning they have the checkbook, they issue all of the funds go through their accounts. Under the JPE, you are not allowed as a member to be the treasurer. You expressly have to have a third party, which will most likely be a certified public accounting firm, prepare the treasury functions. Instead of being done internally, that is done outside as a check and a balance. So our current intergovernmental agreement expires in 2022. So we would be coming back within the next 3 to 4 years, regardless of whether or not we reorganize as a JPE. It's also a separate legal entity. It will have its own tax ID number, again, insulating itself and distinguishing itself from any of the members, and that liability only rests with that entity. So they can't be, and people say, what is a liability of the compact? For instance, if there was energy efficiency audits, as Ron was talking about, we of course carry insurance, we're insured through Maya for public officials, and everything that a town would have. But in the event that a vendor installed insulation incorrectly, and there, heaven forbid, there was a fire and there was damage, the entity cannot then go back against all 21 towns under the JPE. They have our existing insurance, and that's it. They can't start suing all of the individual member towns. Again, better protecting the towns from any liability exposure than we have right now. Next slide. So fiscal, as I talked about this, under the IGA, we have been providing independently audited financial statements since 2009. It's not a requirement. It is now a requirement, and we also have to provide that and report annually to the Massachusetts Department of Revenue. We also have to provide annual reports. I give an annual report to Ron, and I know Ron passes that on to the Board of Selectmen, but now I am required to actually communicate and to send you, as the board, that copy of the report. So again, more due diligence, a little bit improving checks and balances, and some transparency so things don't fall through the cracks. And liability, I've talked about this right now. The county, Barnstable County is our fiscal agent, and under this act, Under the joint powers entity, you have to choose a third party. A board member cannot be and handle the checkbook. So there's a clear separation of roles and responsibility and authority between the two governing structures. It is all of the functions, the tasks are signed and that we perform right now, energy efficiency audits, a power supply option representing the towns on DPU proceedings such as grid modernization. I know I talked about that before, and the Eversort rate case. None of that will change. It truly is a structural organization which I think will hopefully strengthen the Cape Light Compact and provide additional financial accountability. Next slide. So where are we? We've had a joint powers agreement that was prepared and circulated to all of the towns. All of the town councils have reviewed the document. I know your council, I think your in-house and outside council reviewed the document, sent comments to the Compact's General Counsel, which they were incorporated on, and the document was provided for you. And to date, actually I just got an email, 16 towns have now executed the joint powers agreement. 4 towns remain. We have identified a comptroller to do the internal financial functions, and we are working with our auditing firm, Clifton Larson and Associates, to identify and put together a scope of work so we can go out and get quotes for a CPA to do the treasury functions from the board. We've also submitted to the Department of Public Utilities a request for an advisory opinion. We've notified the Attorney General, the Inspector General, Department of Revenue, and DOER of what we're doing, and have received support back from those entities. And the Department of Public Utilities have docketed our request and will hold probably a public hearing on our actions and seek public input in addition to what we've done to date. The only change here is our goal is to have all of our 21 member towns on board and execute all of the agreements on or before June 30th. And again, originally we thought we would take this slowly, do it a little bit of time, but our auditor actually recommended that we do it by July 1 so that there is a clear closeout of one fiscal year and then a new start with a different entity so that we're not running 2 sets of books, a joint powers entity and the Cape Light Compact, which I thought I was on board with that. And so far, all of the towns have voted, that have taken this action up, have voted to support reorganizing as a joint powers entity. The last town I just put together the last slide is what happens. You have choices. You don't have to continue to be a municipal aggregator with the Cape Light Compact. Should you not decide to participate with the other 20 towns on the Cape and Vineyard, you could become your own aggregator. That would require you seeking approval from the Department of Public Utilities to be a municipal aggregator and run your own energy efficiency program, or if you could decide that you want the Eversource, the distribution company, to provide your energy efficiency services instead of running them locally through the towns. So you do have choices. I want to make sure that you understood that, and I'm personally, as the administrator, think that this is a good thing for the Cape Light Compact. I've said it several times. I think it will enhance financial accountability and take us another step in continually improving transparency for the board, because we handle it's very complicated, kind of boring sometimes and dry stuff, and it involves a lot of funds. So that was my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Ms. Moran?
Very comprehensive overview. I appreciate it. I just kind of your impression at this point. So you're kind of going to be doing the same thing with some more administrative levels of expense. What do you think that, the effect of the additional expenses, CPA from all that kind of stuff, along with the, really at the same time utility companies are making it more difficult, jacking up their rates. How do you see this working for your customers, the towns? Do you think that the benefits you've been able to give in the past are going to be smaller going forward?
So right now, the majority of the Cape Light Compact funds, and all of our funds are ratepayer based, come from energy efficiency. It's like 99% of the budget are energy efficiency programs. So the benefits, right now, we have a 3-year, we actually budget in 3-year increments, so we have an approved budget through through 2019, December 31st, 2019. So those funds are set and stable. Beyond that, our next 3-year plan, where I see the Cape Light Compact going is probably, I think we're at the peak of energy efficiency or very close to it. We will be getting smaller as time goes by. Technology changes. If you had asked me this 5 years ago when LEDs were very expensive and CFLs were what you thought of, now it's not, it's all LEDs. So I think the industry constantly evolves, but I see us getting smaller over time because I think we've insulated many homes, not every home. They're still hard to reach and hard to serve. So long term, getting smaller in the next 3-year plan, doing things maybe differently, looking at maybe some of the renewable funds if we're authorized and approved for that, which is right now collected and maintained by the state. And also, I think there'll be some savings moving from the preliminary. There'll be some savings moving from the county. Our rent, we'll see some savings in our rent and other overhead costs as well.
Thank you.
I guess there's one thing I'm a little confused about. If the IGA goes to 2022, wouldn't that still hold place if we did not switch to the JP?
If you didn't execute the Joint Powers Agreement, the intergovernmental agreement still stays in place, and we would, in effect, unless through the agreement they decided to not maintain that, because they could dissolve it that way, we would have to run 2 sets. I'd have to operate an intergovernmental agreement and a joint powers entity, because all of the funds can only go to one entity. So that's the reason.
I guess I'm feeling a little bit, do we really have a choice? And I'm wondering why we don't really have a choice. As to say,
well, the choices are these two. You can.
But we already have agreement until 2022 to be a part of the IGA, and yet that's being taken away as not an option. We actually don't have the option to continue with something we agreed to until 2022.
Right now, the intergovernmental agreement, if they would still be in place, and we would have to operate 2 separate structures.
Right.
And they're in what council, and again, I'm not a lawyer, so what council has advised is if you don't all move to one, you have 2 choices. You can run 2 different entities. You can operate under intergovernmental agreement and a joint powers agreement.
But you actually told me you can't do that because the money can only go to one. So
you can do that. It is not recommended.
Okay.
It wasn't recommended by our auditor to run that or by council, but you can legally run 2 separate entities. It becomes very complicated, and I hate to say messy, but the board could do that. They could also, because there is options for dissolving under the existing intergovernmental agreement, they could, if it got to the point where it was just Falmouth and we were still doing this and the board felt it was burdensome or whatever, they could execute that aspect.
I just want to make sure I understood really
No,
what the option
no,
is.
thank you for clarifying. I wanted to make sure it's confusing talking about different agreements.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're sort of making plans to scale back the installation program? Am I hearing
Scale
that
back
right?
what?
The installation program? Am I hearing that right?
As I said, we have an approved plan through 2019, so there's no changes. When I say scale back, it's right now we're budgeting to do 4,000 energy efficiency audits, and we've been doing that for 17 years. So at some point, that 4,000 will slip a little, but things will change as new technologies come on. But
So I'm always amazed at how few people actually understand or know about the program. And I'm always telling people, as far as I know, it's still renters can get insulation for no cost.
Correct.
That's still correct? And other people average pay 25% of the cost of the insulating.
Yep.
And I wonder, what kind of outreach do you do other than a flyer in the electric bill that always gets thrown away?
So we actually do a lot of grassroots events. We've participated in some through local food banks, food pantries, many of the ecumenical and other service and faith-based organizations. Anytime homeowner shows, anytime we hear of something or invited chambers of commerce events, we will always get a booth, rent a booth if it's something for fee for service.
Right.
We're always looking for events if there's something coming up. A lot of energy committees sometimes will have events in town, and we will promote and participate in that. So anything that, if you ever have anything where you're group meeting together, it can be anything from, we've done small ones from 10 people to, home shows where you get thousands, hundreds of people come into the high school. So we're always looking for opportunities to get a table and to spread the word. Because it is, I mean, that's what I think the great thing about the compact. The compact is you. It's the town of Falmouth, it's the Board of Selectmen, it's Ron giving his time, it's me and it's talking about what we do and what we give back to the community, which is different from how the utilities run the program. They run it in a different manner.
Right. Have you ever, I was just going to, one last thing. Have you ever considered like local advertising, like on New England News?
I think they're on the radio.
We do a lot on the radio. We put some in the paper. But again, I think the biggest success to date that I've seen in all the years I've been doing this is word of mouth. It's when one neighbor says, you know, I just got my home insulated and I rent and it was paid for 100%.
Right.
Or a senior on a fixed income, the same story. So word of mouth has been to date our best way of advertising the program, but we've been here now doing this for almost 17 years. That's where I'm saying we're getting to the point where it's the hard to reach and what we call hard to serve, and we're constantly trying to figure out how do you get to that? How do you get to the person that you know lives there, but they're not very social, or they don't want anybody in their home because they're uncomfortable with strangers because their family doesn't live here around here anymore. That's the market and that's the home that we want to get into. So any ideas you have, I'm all ears.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Patterson?
Well, I certainly want to thank you for the services that you've provided to me, my home. I've taken advantage of them a couple of times. I probably have hundreds of dollars worth of light bulbs that you produced, but you also gave me some great strategies, I guess, to save on things like energy costs for heating. So I want to appreciate that, but I want to say thank you for that. But I also want to ask a question a little bit on an organizational standpoint. Heretofore, Ron has served as our representative on the Cape Light Compact, but now we're moving to this joint powers entity. And he's going to, well, somebody's going to serve as a board member. And I guess I'm asking the question, is there going to be a change in that function? Is the board member going to become more of a policy setting person and doing taking votes on certain actions? In other words, our representative, is that role going to change? And that's the question.
No, because the compact's roles and responsibilities are not changing. What Ron does on your behalf, the biggest thing is he reviews and prepares, we prepare it, they review and approve the energy efficiency plan for 3 years. And then Ron also advises us on DPU dockets. So the actual day-to-day functions and the tasks are going to remain the same. I do ask for an alternate. If I don't want to volunteer either Peter or Julian, but many of the towns have put staff as an alternate on there so that if Ron's great. I mean, he attends every board meeting, and sometimes we meet twice a month, and he'll be there. But that's really the only difference as responsibilities is that we're asking for an alternate.
Thank you.
I just had one, and maybe Peter or Julian or someone can remind me, but the organization that Laura Reckford is working for, that they're going to do work for people's homes here in town, the project for the fall. I'm just thinking that maybe, and I know that's vague, but perhaps that might be a way to get some more names for you. The individuals who are reaching out to this organization for work in their homes. Again, it's not necessarily related to energy efficiency, but it may be a way to connect with some of those people. Because to qualify, you are someone who is a senior or disabled or has some other sort of financial constraints. So maybe we can get that information to you, because it may be just another way to make some contact with folks who could really utilize those services.
The big fix.
Which we've worked with in Yarmouth and Mashpee.
So it's going to be in
So we're
Falmouth.
connected, but I'll actually follow up with our low-income staff on the big, when is?
In September here.
September 16th.
But I think folks have to apply sometime by the summer.
Because what we do then is we maximize and make their dollars go further by
Exactly.
bringing in new resources. We should be connected into that. It's through Housing Assistance Corporation.
Correct.
So we should be right in with that, but I will double check and make sure.
Just thinking it's a way, even for those people who don't end up having projects, it may be a way to connect with people who are part of the hard to serve or hard to reach.
That's a great idea.
Okay. Any other questions for the board? Because we can put the actual vote on our next agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a sign variance for off-premise promotional sign. It's going to be at 270 Gifford Street, the John Wesley United Methodist Church, a People for Cats sign. The sign is in excess of 8 square feet, which is the reason why it is coming to us. The Design Review Committee has recommended that we approve it.
I can bring that down just in case you want to see it.
Okay. If you want to introduce yourself.
My name's Ann Levitt, and I'm a co-chair for fundraising committee for People for Cats, and every year we have a flea market, and this year it's on June 24th at the John Wellesley United Methodist Church. What we'd like to do is have this banner put up to advertise the event 1 week prior to that event, and that's what we are requesting this evening.
Is it really appropriate for the People for Cats to have a flea market?
I know. I know. There's a few jokes here and there and everywhere. Yeah, you got it. You got
Sorry
it.
about that.
That's all right.
Any questions from the board, discussion on this issue?
Motion to
No.
approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Love your shirt.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is here from POCA, Cape Cod, requesting the town of Falmouth ask MDR to allow Falmouth to be considered an aggrieved party and be included with Brewster, Orleans, and Easton's adjudicatory hearing with MDAR and to authorize signing the contract and payment of a fee of $7,500 for legal and related expenses.
Good evening. Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back so soon. I'm Laura Kelly. I'm the president of POCACapeCod.org. We're gathered together as concerned citizens to do everything we can to educate from homeowners to businesses, selectmen, state reps, and senators beyond, how we can lessen our impact of chemical use above our aquifer. We're really lucky to have our water so close by. And we, as the POCA team, believe that we have an extra special responsibility having our water below us. So my quests for the evening are to have the Falmouth Board of Selectmen join the mission with other neighboring, I say neighboring, but not literally in this town, but Cape towns, to continue the fight, to create a new understanding of a no spray policy, plan for vegetation management along rights-of-way power lines. And I have sat up late nights with a lawyer to read every word on MDAR, that's the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources, their actual regulations. This is the only viable direction. It's the only step. This is the only thing that we can do if we wish to continue to prevent this from happening on our Cape towns. So we've been writing letters, and I want to thank this town for being proactive in writing letters to MDAR that they don't wish to have this. We've done that for years now, and it hasn't changed a word. The next step would be to ask to be considered an aggrieved party, to be allowed to be a part of the adjudicatory hearing with Brewster, Orleans, and Eastham. I've found a lawyer, an ecotoxicologist that will represent the Cape towns that wish to join the mission. A fee of $7,500 would cover and support their efforts. The town of Brewster administrator is Michael Embry. He is collecting the funds and dispersing the funds when needed. There are leftover funds from last year because we started last August, and as you know, the case wasn't considered until February this year. There were 4 actual, let's say, things that needed to be done. 3 were satisfied. And that is why the 4 towns last year were not considered an aggrieved party, because we were missing one. So the case is open. More towns are allowed to come and join. And my lawyer and ecotoxicologist got together and said that they have the 4th thing that will heal that situation. So what we want to do is just have the towns talk to the state. That's what a hearing is, right? A room full of people having a discussion. And the state continues to say no. So we want to be more powerful and say, and just show our muscles in this mission that another town wishes to have a discussion on the situation to create a no chemical spray policy along power lines in towns. I wouldn't be here if we didn't believe it was worth our time and money, of course. I wouldn't be here if the tests of the tests of the herbicides were not dated 1978. I wouldn't be here if there were no alternatives available that could potentially cost less, and I'm going to say this loosely, could potentially be less harmful to us over time. You know, there's actual studies on different parts around the world that are proving that said herbicides are harmful. Different areas, different people, different animals. I just talked to an ecotoxicologist over the weekend, actually from Woods Hole, and he said something that really resonated in me. And he says, you know, Laura, because I keep wanting to say it's here. It's happening in our water. Who's going to test it? Who's going to find it in our drinking water? That to me is too late. The whole point of this whole exercise, 8 years of educating myself and talking about this, is to prevent it from getting in our drinking water. We don't want this to be here. It is in drinking water in other parts of the world. It is harming children. They're deformed in certain ways. He says, you know, Laura, the thing is the science is science is science. If it is proven somewhere else, it's doing the same thing, even though the environment might be different. You know, so that was really interesting for me to kind of broaden my scope of this. Why are we waiting till it's too late? I mean, so I just bring that little thought to your attention. I want to read this quote here. You cannot protect the environment unless you empower people, you inform them, and you help them understand that these resources are their own, that they must protect them. That's why I'm here today. I'm hoping that we can write another letter. And to me, I see these as opportunities. I come to give you an opportunity to do one more step, considering we just don't know. We're in that place in time, right, where it's been approved. The APA says, yes, you can use this, which is what the state says. Laura, our hands are tied. And I'm not here saying Eversource is doing anything illegal. I'm not going down that road. They're not. They are using herbicides that are legal by the EPA standards, okay? I'm here saying town wants to do more to protect its natural resources. So, does anybody have any questions?
Do we have any questions for Laura? Because otherwise we can just have our discussion.
I have a question.
Yep.
Two things. One is, I know you haven't gone to the Water Quality Coalition for Barnstable County, which would seem the logical thing to do, because you already have everyone sitting at the table, and these are essentially experts at, you know, protecting the water and dealing with water quality. So I just wanted you to speak a minute on that. And secondarily, because I brought this to the board in a couple of years past, and we did send a letter of support, and I also brought it to the Water Quality Coalition, and we did send a letter at some point. I did the best I could to present it. So my second question is, what's the $7,500 for? And, you know, as a lawyer, I'm having trouble figuring out, you know, like say all, 14, you know, locales all contributed $7,500. Is it different if there are only 2 or 3? Isn't this something that's going to proceed anyway, you know, without spending that $7,500? I'm confused about that, if you could help me with that.
Sure. So to answer your first question about water quality, thank you very much for writing a letter and representing that when you were there. We're really going to Selectmen working per town right now. There are wonderful, already, as you know, established organizations like APCC. You know, there's pond coalitions in every town that are doing everything they can to protect waters. And then the state says, carte blanche, here, go ahead, spray the power lines. The backbone of Cape Cod. So the more organizations that get involved, sure. At this point, we really want the towns to have a say in hopes that the state says, all right, I finally heard you. Or whatever their words are. So that's the reason why I haven't gone to, I'm trying this is not my, I have a job. And so I'm doing the best I can.
Well, all the towns belong to that organization, so
Correct.
you would literally, it would be one hit.
The Cape Cod Commission is a county-wide. Again, the lawyer was specific about offering it per town. What towns want to get involved? Countywide, they have not, in the beginning before it even started being sprayed in the towns, they did write a letter. After that, after it started, and this is actually the 5th year, 8, 9, or 10 out of 15 Cape towns are being sprayed every single year. Cape Cod Commission is not, saying we're busy with the 208 wastewater plan, and I know they are, and they're doing great with that. So I have just, been waiting my turn with that on the county level. Literally giving the towns the opportunity.
Okay,
We
so
feel as though
just
that
one
they
more
are
thing.
stronger.
Did you go to the county or didn't you?
5 years ago, and literally 3 months ago.
And what was the answer, and who did you go to?
Tom Cambry, I'm going to say his right now,
That's
Cambry.
the county. Okay, thank
County,
you. And
yes.
then the money part, that's the other thing.
Okay,
I
right,
need to
so to
understand.
finish that, $7,500 per town. Okay, so last year was $15,000 per town. And this is to only cover the lawyer and the ecotoxicologist. The ecotoxicologist sits in the chair and he talks about the lay of the land. How is this going to affect our land over time? Not a doctor that would talk about how this affects the human body over the time. So it's almost a doctor of the land, right? And so they will be in the room representing the 4 or 6 or 8 Cape towns, whoever wishes to join. Last year, this bucket of $60,000 was not used. We did not get the hearing. Parts of it were to get an affidavit, get the lawyer to do whatever work he needed to do to be ready. He's still ready, still available, still waiting whenever the time comes. MDR needs to approve the YOP. They have not approved the YOP 2017. This would be the 5th year in a row. We believe they absolutely will because it's the 5th year of the VMP, the Vegetation Management Plan. So they're finishing the 5th year. So that's why we believe we need to go forward and be ready for this opportunity. The $7,500 now per town is there's some left over. And any town that wishes to get involved, that's again the cost of the lawyer and the ecotoxicologist. And I get where you're coming from. Might not all be used, then it will be dispersed back to the towns evenly. That is up to Michael Embry, and you can write to him specifically and get those details. It's fine. He's the town administrator, Brewster, who's in charge of all the funding.
Thank you.
And we do, just to finish the story really quickly, we believe in that room with MDAR, ecotoxicologist, lawyer, panel of 13, all Massachusetts state boards, one representative from each one, right? That is the pesticide state board, okay? That's the room where it's all going to happen. That's what we want. That's the adjudicatory hearing. We believe we're going to fail, okay? We're going to the State House, where we're working with the state, where these are the state regulations, we're working, within the state laws, and we want to. I mean, this is why we're doing it this way. We really believe they're not doing anything illegal. They are using herbicides that are, past the EPA standards, blah, blah, blah. We're not going there saying they're not. We're saying that we want the towns are saying they want to better these laws. It is after that, there's a 10-day window of time to then go to finally a third-party lawyer, judge situation, a civil court. And again, all the information will be there. The lawyer, the ecotoxicologist will just jump right in that. There's only 10 days, and this is our big major game plan. And at that point, it will be up to the judge to decide, the fate of us, but at least it'll be in a party's hands that can see, the difference.
Thank you.
I have two questions. Is what you're after no spraying or spraying of different things?
It's a no chemical, use whatever word you want, toxic spray plan. So right now, thank you, Julian Sear, our senator, has 2 bills at the State House on this effort. One of them states that the towns would have the ability to choose per town which type of vegetation management plan they wish for. That makes it confusing to me, personally, my visual. I'm a landscape architect, and here's Dennis and here's Brewster. Granted, they say that they're out there with GPSs now that tell us where the wells are and where the wetlands are and stuff like that while they're 10 abreast spraying. There's supposedly somebody telling them, don't spray here, spray over there, that kind of a thing. So, that line between Dennis and Brewster, and it's hand pruning and mechanical pruning, so for me, I wish personally for something that's going to satisfy all 15 towns, again, to make this a win-win, no-brainer for Eversource and all parties involved. So the discussion is about stopping the actual YOP, which has 5 different types of herbicides used. Once that's stopped, then we can talk about alternatives. Discussions of alternatives prior can go on and on and on until it's actually stopped. So we're taking our time to figure out how to stop it at this point.
My second question has to do with what the deficiency are in the past, in last year's attempt. Seemed to be fairly straightforward, and I don't hear any plan that's going to make it better. They're saying that really should be the water boards that are coming through, not the towns. And if that's their view, they're not going to change if it's just more towns. And the other argument seemed to be that there was not showing that these towns were harmed any more than the general public. And I don't see where we're heading anything differently, with why the state would come back and say anything different than they did in the past.
So as far as herbicides goes, along the rights of way, amazepar, triclofor, mosaemphonium, and one other mest, I'm going to not say this correctly, methazone or something, pardon me. These 4 herbicides you cannot purchase on the shelves here on Cape Cod. No homeowner can get their hands on them. You must be a Massachusetts State Pesticides licensed applicator in order to use them. So on that quarter, our neighbors aren't, they're going to use Roundup, which is glyphosate, the only one herbicide out of the 5 that homeowners can get their hands on is Roundup.
I guess I'm not hearing any response to my question.
So that was the second question.
My question is, what's going to be different when you bring this back to the state again about the lack of water boards being involved in this? And they're saying that these 4 towns aren't in any more, they're not considered aggrieved parties because they weren't being harmed any more than the general public. What the argument's going to change? I mean, there seem to be really fairly strong arguments as to why these towns are not aggrieved parties. I was a little surprised. That seems fairly fundamental for them to come back and say, nope, you're not aggrieved parties for these reasons. What are you going to go back and now say that actually will convince the state, nope, we are aggrieved parties?
There's one thing missing out of the 4. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't talk this language. You could bring him here. You could talk to him. He absolutely said, Laura, we've got it figured out, otherwise I wouldn't be here. I guess
then I have my lack of faith that why wasn't that thing covered last year? And so to put money on a lawsuit that I'm not convinced is going to win is where I guess I am right now, that I'd like to know what the plan is.
I'm not convinced we're going to win either. We need to not win to get to win. Does that make any sense?
No.
We're going to
appeal, maybe?
An adjudicatory hearing where the state level, it's all state. All 13 boards in the panel are state boards, so we're expecting to fail. And then we go to civil court with a judge.
So-
But we can't just skip that.
I think I think what you're saying is that initially you're before a board that this is the area that they work in, but if you fail, then you have the ability to appeal or have a second hearing in front of a judge. Is this what you're saying? Who then isn't part of this particular, and I don't know, I'm just paraphrasing what you're saying. I don't know if that's a process, but it sounds like that's what you're saying. And then it sounds as if what you're saying is that you feel that that judge, because they are not sort of in this milieu of people who deal with pesticides and are part of the state agencies, would maybe see this, be sympathetic to the argument. I mean, I guess, I totally get the concern here. I mean, we have serious issues with making sure our aquifer is protected. I think when I look at this, I look at it from the perspective, I mean, I think it's what Chairman Jones is saying, which is that, and what a judge may also say, which is that there was a problem with standing, and it's really hard to cure standing. If you don't have the right to bring a case, your facts can be incredible. They can be the most compelling facts, but you don't have the right to bring that case. And that's what, when I read through this, there was no standing. And I think that a judge, and again, I'm not familiar with this process, so, maybe your attorney can provide more information, but my understanding would be if it's denied sort of initially, the standing is always an issue. So if you're going in front of this judge and you don't have standing, I feel as if I don't see anything in what we've been presented that shows that the standing is going to be cured, that the lack of standing.
Standing's a non-starter.
And that's why, and maybe you can ask Attorney Taub.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe he can provide us with some information on that, because it's not an enormous amount of money, but I think the question just is, does the process sort of have any real potential other than, just kind of keeping it out there in the public? So if we could maybe I would like to have some information about what the strategy is that's different this time, to understand that process maybe.
I also need to know whether we actually have the financial resources, any way that we could.
No, that too. Yeah, no, that too.
Before we go too far. Mr. Brown?
When I read it, it said that the last time, it was just vague references to the possibility of harming the general public. But if I would hope we're going to have some input with the attorneys if we are going to invest in this, but if we as a town are concerned that they're going to be damaging our municipal water supply, that's their town's resource, then I think we would have standing.
Well,
you're the lawyers, but...
Yeah, I'm just only going by what this says, and the first piece of the discussion is that, and he goes, obviously this isn't the appropriate place to go through all of it, but the magistrate at a, somewhat lengthy level really discusses why the towns don't have standing. And again, I think it's just something that maybe we need some more information on, because when I hear that to me says, you could take $7,500 and put it into public education or, about pesticides or things like that, if we're not going to be able to cure standing.
He left the case open. Okay, he didn't close the case. And he is allowing the 3 out of the 4 to stay. So we don't even have to go back and do the other 3. We just have to concentrate on that one other. So it's completely moving forward. I'm out here, I'm grassrooting it, going to all the boards of selectmen. And for that little, it's an amount of money, but for a town, it would really be great to have Falmouth. You guys do, I'm just going to say this off my cuff. I go to every town on Cape Cod, right? It has been years for me. And you guys do more than any other Cape town. Of all the brochures and everything I read in the hallways when I come in and out of here, to protect drinking water. And it really amazes me that we're not talking about what can we do, what is the next step, and for that amount of money, I've got it all set up. I've got the lawyer, I've got the ecotoxicology, I've got 4 towns, we're doing this, we're going for it, and I would really love Falmouth to have this up. It's an opportunity, and it's up to you guys to decide for your town.
Yeah, we just received some communication from our Board of Health that basically say, before you move forward, shouldn't you consult with us? And it just so happens that the chairman of our Board of Health is a toxicologist with the Oceanographic Institute.
Yeah, we wrote together today. We wrote each other.
And And basically, he's saying, you need to give us a chance to weigh in on this before you invest any money from the town in this effort. And I really want to take him seriously because I've seen the work that he's done volunteer on his own time on behalf of the town. And he has three children, in this town. So I know that he's as concerned about it as you are and we are. But I want to feel like $7,500 is going to be well invested and have a likelihood of actually accomplishing anything. And I think the other question is, we need to be looking at the alternatives for managing the vegetation in those rights of way. And what's the alternative? And could it potentially be as damaging or more damaging than spraying with this particular chemical? And I don't know the answer, and I don't think you do either.
Well, there are many options.
I want an expert in the field to basically be able to come back and give us some reassurance in that regard. Because if we can't make that case, I don't care where you go, we're not going to get any change of practices. And that's where I feel like, yes, we've got to do some work. Yes, we've got to be vigilant in this. But I want to make sure that when we move forward, we're investing $7,500 along with everybody else in a way that's going to be effective and bring the best result.
And what I like about that suggestion is if the Board of Health comes back and affirms any of this, I'm going to encourage our Board of Health to become a aggrieved party.
Absolutely.
As opposed to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Health is someone I think would be ruled by this magistrate as being an aggrieved party, or our water department being an aggrieved party because our water is being affected as opposed to us. And what the magistrate is saying, that's who needed to be coming forward. At that point, I'm willing to put $75,000 of our money to our lawyers to put the lawsuit forward by our Board of Health.
Yes.
But I think to have the Board of Health give us some information that would be very, very useful to be able to join in on the fight.
I agree, and if we could just, if while we're waiting for that, if we could get some more information, because all we have in front of us, and thank you for providing, I don't mean all in a pejorative way.
Thank you for your efforts. I mean, we're not trying to put you down.
No, but when I just see that what we have in front of us just says that there was, for this reason, it was dismissed because of lack of standing. So that's what, I just want to know, if something was left open, if we can just, it doesn't have to be anything formal, but just some, just a summary from the attorney, just explain where the status of the case and what these steps are that he feels there's more weight to them this time around.
I'll do that if you promise to read the 9 pages from Dala, because it'll explain it.
And the other
But I will. That's fine.
I don't have any level of confidence that this is only a $7,500 ask. If the attorney would also summarize why we would not be asked for any more money going forward.
He has capped himself, I believe, at $32,000, and that was from last year's $60,000, and that remains the same.
But it would be great to have a summary from him on that, along with the information that Selectman English Braga has requested.
No problem.
And also, if I could, in this decision, they're making a point that a matter of Burnham Land Trust, docket numbers 90077, decision on applicant's motion to dismiss for a more definitive statement. It must be noted that the party in the Burnham Land Trust case was the town water board, not the town.
Right.
Close examination is required to determine whether the local body bringing the appeal is the appropriate party.
Right. That's the standing issue that we're asking for some clarification from the attorney on, because if we were to decide to join, then maybe it makes sense for it to be the Board of Health or the Water Department or whatever. At any rate, I mean, I think we just need some clarity from.
Excellent.
Like you said, you're the messenger for this really important message. We're just asking to have the attorney, because these are fees for an attorney, just give us a sense of where the case is at. That's all.
Would I be able to offer him to come here in front of this board as well?
Or an email to begin with would be easy.
Yep, we could do the paper trail first, sure, yeah. But that's also, he's been doing it in particular towns that ask, so that would be fine too. But I'd be glad to, do things by email. Please, play with your Board of Health in the meantime. I will as well. And as far as alternatives go, I'm going to give a quick list. I remember last week here, a gentleman came up and spoke about goats, remember?
Yeah.
So, of course, that's absolutely working in other counties around the nation and around the world. I have a particular favorite one, and all the possibilities. You know, mowing flattens everything, as you know. It was the turtles in the spring that it was the big uproar about mowing. Well, they spray in the fall. They could mow in the fall, but that's just still, I think, old school. The modern way is to use chemicals, and we've got to look to the futuristic way to figure out what the next blank is, right? My favorite choice, I'll tell you. It's like got a long arm, right? Kind of like a rake. It's called a rake. On the top is a handle, and you can press the gas, the lever, whenever you want. On the other end, it's a form of, I don't want to use the word flame, but it is a heat source, and which it could take down vegetation that is unwanted, and burning a lot of things. I'm going to say 9 out of 10. I'm a landscape architect. I'm a horticulturist by trade. A lot of things do not reflower, regrow after being burnt. And what does burning do? Burning actually adds food back to the microorganisms and neighboring plants. So it could be a target of this plant and that plant really easy instead of a few, or, you know, it's less wind problematic and such because it's right there instead of back away. So then my world's a sort of controlled fires. You know, if there's an actual area. We do it often with firemen and such. So it's about weather, it's about location. It might be different in each town, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's going to end up being a combination. Hand pruning is the good old fashioned. We don't have to worry about anything. They have done mass clear cutting throughout Cape Cod in the last few years. Vegetation is not tall. And, you know, things like oak bushes, then instead of the oak trees, you know, the ones that only grow to 15 feet tall, why not leave them? You know, they're not actually going to grow more than that. And it could start filling in, creating almost like a carpet feel. So I think that there's a way with placing natives, you know, once you burn something, once you take something away, you put something back in. There could be a whole ideas of how to do that. And if we do it once, set it up, create a sustainable, you know, corridor, then we're fine for generations, right?
Thank
so
you.
That's kind of
Right.
the way I see this possibility. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
We'll continue to be in touch. I'd be glad to come back again. The one thing I'm going to just lastly say is, as soon as MDART does approve the YOP, there will be a 21-day window. I won't be able to get to all 6, 7, 8 towns that I'm going to right now. So you'll have to, you know, make a decision when and if that happens. If you want to, you know, kind of jump on board, I'll continue to give you education and hopes that we have more time to see each other, to keep working together. And I want to thank you all for your great suggestions.
And can you remind me, what's the date of their decision?
Well, wouldn't that be nice if they would tell us?
Okay.
It could have been a month ago, so it gave me time to get to more boards. And I just think it makes us stronger being a part of this. So thanks for the opportunity. I hope you join the mission.
So, I'm sorry, when does the 21-day comment period?
Well,
We don't know.
we have to wait for them to actually give that they approve the YOP.
Okay.
And they haven't yet, so it's to be determined. It could be August, but I think they need to do it before August because they spray Martha's Vineyard in August. So the latest, I believe, is July.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I do want you to understand.
But it could be this Friday.
Some of our apprehension in all this is that when, about 5 or 6 years ago, they did not spray and came and clear cut. The clear cutting, which was the option that they had, what was put forward in the regulations, was dramatic and very upsetting to people, and was the alternative that was put forward and saying, let's make sure we know what we're going to get if we get what we ask for, and turns out what we're getting is another problem. And so that's where
They need to clear cut in order to spray, so it was their way, because they cannot spray anything over 10 feet tall, so they clear cut all of Cape Cod just at different times. So, right, we didn't have the forethought at that time to say, oh, you're not going to spray, thank you, bye. That doesn't mean the end. It just means that they took a year to clear cut to get ready to come back to spray. So I'm with you. We're going to try to do our best to stay a step ahead of them this time. Thanks.
you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is to approve 2017 seasonal annual licenses. We have 2 lodging house licenses, Bailey's by the Sea and the Woods Hole Inn, and 2 secondhand deal licenses, Cape Cod Pickers and Auction and the Humgen Consignments.
I move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. The ayes have it. Individual selectmen's reports. Ms.
I
Moran.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the Courtyard and Paul and Jay Miller for the event. They do a Courtyard Gives Back event every year. They've done it for a number of years. The employees all participate. It was terrific fun. It was for scholarship and benefits in memory of the tragic deaths of the hockey players James Lavin and Owen Higgins. So thanks to everyone who gave and to those who participated.
Mr. Patterson?
Yes, attended the League of Women Voters discussion with our state representatives on Tuesday. State Senator Demasito was there, Representative Vieira and Representative Fernandez. It was a great discussion about them, how they collaborate to represent us, and a question and answer opportunity for people to basically talk to their representatives. So it was really a great event, and I basically tip my hat to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring these kinds of activities. On Thursday, I went to a Cape Cod Commission briefing on a study that they're conducting on the regional economic impacts on businesses, jobs, and housing is their primary focus. It was an outstanding presentation by an economist that's been retained, who's come around the Cape, but is starting to put his report back. And this report will be actually presented again at the One Cape Summit coming at the end of June. And I was told by Heather Harper, who's the specialist in this area for the Cape Cod Commission now, that half of that summit is going to be dedicated to housing topics. And so we're going to hear this information coming back. What stunned me was the economic forecasts. They're all intermingled, of course, but projections on demographics, but also on the impacts of those demographics. And this is a consultant that works around the country, and he's got 15 years of experience. I really would advise you to tune in on that one and actually get a chance to listen to that presentation. I hope that our planning board gets an opportunity to listen to it, because they're the people that probably would be most informed, or among them be most informed about the dynamics that are going on here that we aren't necessarily aware of because we're buried in the middle of it and don't have this outsider's perspective. Just as a take-home, he said that our dynamic here on Cape Cod, he said, is unique among the hundreds of municipalities he's worked with across the country. He said, he said it kind of in amazement, like, I have to tell you, I've never seen an economic situation like yours anywhere else in the country, which is an interesting observation from a gentleman that's been in the field for 15 years and has worked with municipalities all over the country. So I would recommend you. The next thing I did was, Megan and I went to the Atria dedication of their, it's the Woodbriar Wing, I guess, which has been renovated and transformed and is quite an impressive facility now, and is in a much better position to meet the aging needs of our population, including, this is the dementia wing as well. Pretty impressive, and it was nice to be part of that and know that this resource is available to our citizens as, I'll say, as we age and need that kind of support facilities. The last thing I wanted to mention, I'm not going to talk about the regular meetings I've been to, but the Bikeways Committee actually sponsored a video on Saturday at the library called Bikes versus Cars. And I must say it was profound in a lot of ways. It actually looked at major international cities all over the country, and also looked at Sao Paulo, Brazil, and some of the efforts that they've made to make their commuting transportation a little bit more accommodating for people who use bicycles as an alternative to cars. The thing that were brought out were the impact of cars on our economy, consumption of land for roads and parking. I know we're beginning to look at a parking study for Falmouth. I read in The Economist just a month ago that cities are beginning to say no more parking. We don't want people bringing their automobiles into the city anymore. We want to push you to actually use public transportation, shuttles, and other means of getting into the town where we do business. Something we need to be thinking about. They also talked about the public health issues, not to mention vehicle accidents, pollution, respiratory inflation, the cost burden of individual families purchasing, maintaining, and insuring automobile use, contributions to our climate change due to increased emissions of greenhouse gases, the impact on family life. They showed these cities where people spend 3 hours commuting one way. Well, that's 3 hours that you took out of your family life in supporting your children and what have you. They compared Amsterdam, as I mentioned, to other major cities, and it turns out that they have been able to control this, and actually 50% of the people there commute by bicycle or walk. And it's because they've structured their city to reinforce that. Anyway, I think it's something we need to be thinking about as we go into this parking study, and ask ourselves, what do we want Falmouth to be like in terms of the use of vehicles, and what kind of a business dynamic do we want to support? We need the infrastructure, but aren't there alternatives to putting up multi-story parking lots, which is kind of suggestions that I've heard made. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to segue because it's a perfect connection to what I was going to mention, which is that I was at the Bikeways Committee meeting last week, and you know, it's just they're really pushing hard, as they should, to continue to promote and encourage expanded bike use and really user-friendly options. And so, you know, talking about a couple of their primary goals, which is to continue to be part of the conversation about what's going to happen with the rail going to the Upper Cape transfer station and some of the options available there, in terms of extending the bike path from Falmouth all the way up to the canal. And also, sort of more locally, an issue that I know they've been working on for a long time, and thank you to Peter McConaty and also to Dylan Fernandez, who we had some conversations about this week, but trying to get a crossing from Goodwill Park over 28 so that people can have that connector, and trying to navigate, you know, some conversations with DOT about that, and you know, moving that along and seeing how feasible that is and what would be required. And then the other piece that's somewhat timely that they're working on now, and again, Peter has been part of the conversation as well as Representative Fernandez, and I believe some other individuals in the town, about trying to paint the bike lanes on the new paving that's happening right now, just because it's an opportunity. There's some timeliness. There's a timeliness factor that's there. So those conversations are ongoing, and Peter has been very responsive. I know he has, you know, he's got a lot on his plate, but I think he recognizes that there is a real value to promoting more extended bike use. So just a kudos to him as well as to the Bikeways Committee for really pushing that agenda forward. Also attended Solid Waste Advisory Committee and heard a really wonderful presentation from a woman who is working sort of county-wide. She has kind of a hybrid position with working for the county as well as for the DEP, and she talked a bit about some of the potential grants that might be available to the town, looking at some innovations, best practices, things like that we can try to get some funding for to address what continues to be a significant challenge, which is, you know, what do we do with our waste going forward in particular? You know, we know that there's going to be less room to dump our trash, and you know, more of a need for increased recycling, better recycling, possibilities for composting and things like that. So again, another committee that is working on a really difficult issue, and hopefully we can move some of those agenda items forward so that we can get some grant funds, because they're there, and we have an individual who's extremely dynamic and who is willing to work with us to help us get some funding for some projects that might then be able to be duplicated or replicated rather outside of the community. And lastly, just two quick announcements. Just a thank you to Nancy Schroeder. She served on the Falmouth Substance Abuse Commission and has stepped back from that role due to some of her own time availability, and I just want to thank her for her service, as well as Lionel Hall, who was on the Affirmative Action Committee, and for similar reasons, just difficulty with finding time, has stepped down. So we do have vacancies on both of those boards. Affirmative Action Committee has only 3 members right now. It is a quorum, but we're missing 2 more. So for folks who are interested, certainly hope that people will step up and be able to come at least to meetings to see what it's all about. But thank you to both of those folks for their service. Thank you.
And speaking of vacancies on boards, our Coastal Pond Management Committee hasn't been together for quite some time, and I'm hoping we can resurge that. We're going to have to get them going. They were right in the middle of developing mooring plans for Green Pond, and right on the verge of preparing to present that. And we lost our chairman, and we haven't met since. So we need to research that board. And the beach committee meeting was canceled this month as Mr. McGardo had an operation that didn't go very well, and he's having an extended recovery. And beach superintendent Don Hoffer's come back to help, and that's great. So getting by, but we'll have to get that committee back together soon.
Mr. Suso?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I was also pleased to join Sam and Megan at the Thursday gathering. No, that's no big deal. It was very impressive, as has been noted. It's quite a facility, and we certainly share in their delight that they've arrived at the finish line on that impressive project. Also, I wanted to note that on this past Tuesday evening, I was pleased to attend the informational meeting for property owners in the Mara Vista area relating to bringing the Little Pond Sewer Service area connections to successful closure there as well. You'll recall, the board will recall, that a similar meeting was held at this time last year for property owners in the Falmouth Heights area. All matters are moving forward very well in regard to this Little Pond Sewer Service Area project, with anticipated completion near the end of this calendar year. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
One question I have on the Little Pond Sewer Service area. We will still need to have some discussions among this board as to how we want to close out that project, right? There was discussion that we were going to, if there were some finances available, figure out a way of trying to equalize the difference between the gravity and pump people, right?
Correct, and that will be brought to the board. We need to have all our costs completed.
Right.
That's not going to happen for several months yet, and when that is concluded and we have a final cost accounting, then we'll be coming forward and having that discussion to which you refer here with members of the board, and that is an important step to come. Definitely, thank you.
Anything else?
Great. Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none? The ayes have it.
Welcome to the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce. The Falmouth Chamber is dedicated to working on behalf of our members to make Falmouth a better place to live, work, and conduct business. We are committed to developing the economic, cultural, educational, and civic interests of our community and welcome the support from all organizations to achieve our combined goals. Whether you call Falmouth home, are a summer resident, or a visitor, we hope you take advantage of all that the Chamber has to offer.
Holiday Inn Falmouth opened year-round for your business and travel needs. We provide a full restaurant and accommodations for banquets, holiday parties, weddings, corporate events, seminars, and more. Featuring KC Bar and Grill, where guests or Falmouth residents can enjoy our selection of local craft beers, cocktails, and a variety of pub food from our menu. Holiday Inn Falmouth, your home away from home.